So welcome back, everybody. In today's episode, we are going to be putting up some electric netting and an electric fence charger to take care of our new garden spot that we just created. So believe it or not, I just come out yesterday, planted this garden several days ago, started having cantaloupes and watermelons coming up, and the majority of them got stomped in last night due to a bull that's been on the loose here for a couple of months that a distant neighbor cannot seem to get under control. So this netting is absolutely needed. Just tilled the garden in again and had to replant the majority of it. Very frustrating, but our electric fence is not only going to keep the bull out, hopefully, but deer, rabbits, raccoons, and other things that want our garden as much as us. So let's get started. So I just picked up some electric fence netting. By the way, I'll have all this in the description. I bought it from a company called Vivor. That's where I buy a lot of my stuff because the price was excellent. In this waterproof box, I have an electric fence charger that my father gave to me. You can pick these up at Tractor Supply or also on Amazon. Warning, most electric netting has a minimum amount of joule requirement. That's your stored energy that's pulsated out into the fence right there. This one said to use at least 0.5 or higher. You're going to find that a lot of your solar fence chargers cannot even make enough to run netting like this. It doesn't meet the minimum spec. You can see on the front of this one where this one's at 1.2. This is typically what you run on your wired fence. Now, I did find out this one is not waterproof. You can buy chargers that are, so I already have a waterproof box, and it's designed to run cords and wire out the side. We're gonna mount it right here on the fence. I picked up some insulated underground wire. We're gonna use this to charge this fence, as well as we have to put in ground rods. That's very important. We're gonna explain all this. And I picked up a couple of copper ground rods at my local Tractor Supply. You can get galvanized as well. This is a good time to mention that you need to read your charger instruction manual. Some are going to require at least 2 ground rods. Some require 3. That's very important to get a good ground and make your system work properly. Always read your instructions. So speaking of the ground rods, let's go ahead and start with those. You can use a regular post driver like I'm gonna have, or a sledgehammer. There's lots of ways that you can get them in. But we're gonna drive these down into the ground and leave about 2 to 3 inches sticking up so we can put our ground clamp on there. I'm gonna be mounting my box right here on the fence that's gonna house my electrical charger, and we're gonna have to run a cord around to this in order to fire it up. Again, you can buy solar chargers. Just make sure they're powerful enough for the length and type of fence that you're gonna run. And then the instructions say I have to put another ground rod at least 10 feet away. And we're gonna run one wire from this ground rod to the other one. So let's get started. Don't forget, when you put your ground rod in, make sure you put it somewhere that the lawnmower is not gonna catch it. As you can see, we're blessed with sandy soil here in Florida, so it goes in nice and easy. If you have a rocky area, this is gonna take a while. All right, so per the instructions, we're gonna come over at least 10 feet, and we're gonna drive in another ground rod. And some require 3, and you may have to go an additional 10 feet, so make sure you buy enough wire for that. All right, so if you take a look down here, here's my ground rod still sticking out a couple of inches, and I picked up some of these ground clamps. As you can see, you'll loosen these 2 bolts right here, clamp it really good to the ground rod, and then this hole right here is where you insert your wire. We'll clamp it nice and tight, and then we're gonna run back over to the other ground rod. All right, so I stripped back the end of this wire. You'll also notice you can run copper wire as well. A lot of people do that. I'm just going to use this wire not only to charge my fence, but for my ground as well. So now we're connecting the wire to the ground rod. Now we can bend this down, run along the fence, or this is designed for underground and rated. You can bury it and run it as well. This is all going to be temporary. If we like our new garden spot and decide to plant there again next year, we're going to run a new wire. So that's what I love about the netting. And this right here, I can pull all this up and move it to a new location. All right, let's unroll this netting and get this figured out. Hopefully it's nice and easy. Man, I bought way too long of a fencing. It just doesn't seem like there's that much in here. But we can use this for goats and other stuff later on. All right, so let's start putting this in, and we're gonna have to make careful that the netting doesn't touch the ground. That's probably gonna be easier said than done. All right, so let's take a look at what we got going on right here. So in this box, it's gonna try to fall out on me, but the box holds it well. Don't wanna touch that wire. You can see we have one wire hooked up to the red side, one wire hooked up and pinched in on the ground side, and you can hear this clicking in there. So the wire that's hooked up to the red side comes out this waterproof bottom and goes over and connects into the fence. All of these runs have tiny wires run around those green wires themselves, including the yellow. You can probably see them shining in the sun. And the way they have them all just wadded in together with more of this electrical fencing and electrical rope right here, they're all connected. So ultimately every green wire is woven together and you only have to make one connection right here. Now the most important thing is keeping not the black run right there. There is no metal on it. The first metal, first electric wire starts right there. So that second run up, you want to make for sure there is no grass or anything growing up and touching that. You don't want this going to ground. The other wire coming off the green side in there goes right down to our first ground rod. We've got our wire that runs along the ground. And remember, we're 10 foot apart to a second ground rod. Don't forget, you may have to put a third one in for your particular charger. And over there on the garden, I've got an outlet because I thought about doing some drip irrigation in the future. So I just run me an outdoor rated extension cord over to this since this is all temporary. But now we're fired up and going. So the netting, let me just go ahead and give you some advice. I think it's pretty easy to see. Those flexible rods right there, they're not gonna hold your fence up really tight. So whenever you make hard 90-degree turns like I did here, I drove a T-post into the ground and I used some of this rope that does not have metal on it because you do not want to ground your fence to the ground itself. And I just tied and pulled this tight. That picks the fence up off the ground, keeps the top from having a droop in it. And then I took off this way. The fence itself is plenty rigid enough to hold itself on a long run like you see here. We're staying off the ground nicely and we're not getting much sag up here. But it's when you make those hard 90-degree turns that you're gonna need something. If you made a nice big loop or straight run, I think the fence as is would be just fine. So you can see I put another T-post in right there and did the same thing. Tied the fence up nice and tight, run off over there and tied the fence off to this fence. Now I rolled the fence up over there. The instructions didn't say I couldn't do that. I'm just making for sure that it's rolled up. Since it's all tied together on the ends anyways where you connect, I didn't think that mattered, but that roll is energized that you see over there. The important thing is the bottom of the roll is not making contact with any grass or the ground itself. So I've got an electric fence tester that'll be in tomorrow. I'll cut the camera back on when that comes in because I'm not touching this to find out because that's a pretty strong charger and we're going to test the fence real quick, but I can hear it pulsing, Things seem good, things look good, but we'll check the pulse on it tomorrow, that fence tester. That's something important that we need to do anyways. So as you can see, it's next morning. I had to wait for my tester to come in. There's many different types of testers that you can get for a fence, really nice ones that give you voltage readouts and other information, all the way down to these cheap $5 testers that are made just for this. There's a little light right in here that will light up once you hang this to the fence. You have to ground this into the earth, and as that electricity passes through, you'll see the pulse, and the light here is just a good cheap way to let you know that your fence is working properly. So we'll stick this probe into the ground, hang this on the fence. So don't forget, any part of the green or the yellow except for the black down here, they all should show a reading. So I don't know how well y'all can see that. See the light flashing in there pulsing? We're definitely getting power through our fence. It's so hard to see on camera. There it is. The pulsing doesn't necessarily match up with the frame rate on the camera, so you're only going to see the pulse every so often, but to the eye, I can see it every about 1 to 2 seconds. By the way, I picked this up for $5 with shipping on Amazon. Most of the testers in Tractor Supply, for example, were like $30 to $40. They're much nicer ones, but this is a good, easy way to occasionally come out and test your fence. I'll put a link down in the description if you're interested in this. All right, well now we have a system that's up and running that can also be portable. That's what I love about this. If we decide to keep this garden spot as is, we're gonna go ahead and put some traditional fencing up next year. And I've got potential plans to move this box over to our other barn, take this portable fencing, that's what's so beautiful about it. You can pick it up and roll it right up, and go make an area for our chickens to potentially free range a little later this summer. All right, so now our garden is protected from the local bull that's getting out and wreaking havoc, from other types of animals, and hopefully we can grow our watermelons and cantaloupes out here. I hope today's video taught you something and you learned how to install one of these electric fence chargers and fence netting. We'll catch you on the next video.